What would you do if you opened a door expecting a rifle and found a dying woman instead? The cold steel of a rifle barrel pressed against William Thompson's temple as he stared into the darkness of the gear closet. His weathered hand still held the doorknob, frozen in place. A pool of blood spread beneath the crumpled body of a young woman lying on the floor. Her wrists were tied with frayed rope. Her breathing was weak and painful. Bruises covered her pale skin, purple and black like someone had used her as a punching post. She looked no older than 25. Her auburn hair was dirty and stuck to her face with dried blood. Behind William, the shop owner's voice shook. "You weren't supposed to see that, Thompson. Just close the door and walk away. Take any rifle you want, no charge. Forget what you saw." But William could not forget. Not after seeing the woman's eyes open for a short second when the light touched her face. In that brief moment, she had begged for help without saying a word. This wasn't just an injured woman. She was dying, and every instinct William had built from 20 years living in the mountains told him that if he walked away, he would become part of the evil that put her here. "Who is she?" William asked. His voice was steady, filled with the strength of a man who had faced dangers alone in the wilderness and survived. "Nobody important," the shop owner, Jeremy James, replied. "Just a troublemaker who got what she deserved. You're new to Copper Creek. You don't understand how things work here." William turned slowly, his gray eyes fixed on Jeremy the same way a wolf locks onto prey. At 43, William had learned to read people like weather signs, and right now, Jeremy was lying. "I understand enough to know she needs a doctor," William said. "And you're going to help me get her one." Jeremy laughed nervously. "Doctor? The nearest real doctor is 3 days' ride to Denver. She'll be dead long before then." "And good riddance." Those words flipped a switch inside William. He had come to town only to buy a rifle, nothing more. Instead, he found himself staring at a nightmare that pulled up memories he had tried to bury long ago, memories of another woman he had failed to save. The woman on the floor stirred. A small, painful sound escaped her lips. William had heard that sound before from someone who had needed him, and he had been too late. Not again. "What's her name?" William asked. "Catherine Cox," Jeremy answered. "Claims she's some kind of journalist from back east. Said she was writing about mining in Colorado Territory, but the truth is, she came to cause trouble. Asking questions about accidents at the Copper Creek mine." Pieces fell into place in William's mind. Copper Creek was a mining town. Mining was dangerous, but danger became death when greedy men ignored safety. "Who beat her?" William asked as his hand shot forward. He grabbed Jeremy's wrist with such force that the gun Jeremy was reaching for fell to the floor. "I wouldn't do that," William warned. Jeremy whimpered. "They'll kill me if I talk." "Then you better hope I'm scarier than they are." Jeremy swallowed hard. It was Marcus Webb and his boys. Webb owns the mine and most of the town. When she started asking questions about the cave-in last month, Webb wanted her scared into silence. His boys went too far. She fought them. Things got out of hand. William clenched his jaw. He had met men like Marcus Webb before, men who used fear and pain to hold power. "Why is she here instead of a jail cell or a doctor's office?" William asked. Webb couldn't let her go after what his boys did. Too many people saw them dragging her away. So he brought her here, told me to keep her quiet until he figured out what to do with her. "Keep her quiet," William repeated. "You mean until she died?" "I didn't want any part of this," Jeremy cried. "Webb said it would only be a few days. I didn't know she was hurt this bad." William didn't believe him. Not fully, but now wasn't the time. Catherine had maybe hours to live. "How long has she been here?" 3 days, maybe 4. 3 or 4 days with no real care. Catherine's chances were fading fast. William knelt beside her. Her left arm was bent wrong. Her ribs looked bruised. A cut on her forehead had dried, but the wound was open. Her breathing was uneven. "Help me get her out of here," William ordered. "Are you crazy?" Jeremy asked. "Webb will kill us both." "I'm not asking," William said. "We're getting her help. There's no doctor in Copper Creek, no law that isn't in Webb's pocket." "There's Nancy Ramos," William replied. "Lives 10 miles north. She patched up miners for years. If anyone can help Catherine, it's Nancy." Jeremy paled. "Nancy hates men who hurt women." "Then she is exactly who Catherine needs." Jeremy slowly began gathering blankets and medical supplies while William lifted Catherine carefully. She felt too light, like she had lost more blood than her body could handle. William whispered, "Catherine, can you hear me? I'm William Thompson. I'm taking you to safety." Her eyelids fluttered. For a moment, her green eyes met his. Then she slipped back into unconsciousness. Moments later, they stepped outside into the blinding afternoon sun. William placed Catherine on his horse, Thunder, securing her with blankets. "Give me a 2-hour head start before you tell Webb," William said. "2 hours won't be enough," Jeremy warned. "It's all I need." William rode out of Copper Creek with Catherine held close to him. The trail into the mountains was rough and full of danger. But leaving her behind meant death. He would not fail again. The sun dipped lower as William guided Thunder through the forest trail, Catherine resting weakly against his chest. Every few minutes he checked her breathing. Each breath felt shallower than the last. He knew he was racing time. The sound of distant hoofbeats drifted through the trees. William stopped and listened. 3 horses, maybe 4, moving fast. Webb's men had discovered she was gone sooner than expected. William steered off the main trail into thick aspens for cover, choosing a longer but safer path. Catherine's fever began to rise. She mumbled softly, her voice shaking with pain and confusion. William held her closer. "You're safe now," he whispered, unsure if she heard him. By the time they reached Nancy Ramos's homestead, the sky was painted orange and red. The small cabin stood in a clearing surrounded by tall pines. Smoke curled softly from the chimney. Nancy Ramos stepped out onto the porch, her sharp eyes taking in William, the injured woman in his arms, and the seriousness of the situation. At 62, she was small but strong, with a no-nonsense presence that made even tough men lower their heads. "William Thompson," she said firmly. "I heard you came back to this territory, but I didn't expect trouble to show up with you." "It wasn't planned," William replied. "Her name is Catherine Cox. She's a journalist. Webb's men beat her and left her to die." Nancy's expression hardened. "Bring her inside, now." The inside of Nancy's cabin was neat and organized. One room was set up like a small clinic with a table, medical tools, herbs, and supplies. William laid Catherine gently on the table. Nancy examined her injuries with steady hands. Broken arm, cracked ribs, head injury. "Infection has started," Nancy said. "Another day without treatment, and she wouldn't have made it." William felt a mix of relief and anger. Relief that he had reached Nancy in time. Anger that Catherine had been left to suffer for days. "You did right bringing her here," Nancy said, "but you brought danger with you too." "I know," William replied. "Webb's men are tracking us." As if his words summoned them, the sound of horses echoed from the trees. 4 riders appeared at the edge of the clearing, armed, focused, ready for violence. Nancy grabbed a shotgun from the wall. "Expecting trouble?" William asked. "Trouble has been knocking on my door for 20 years, Nancy said calmly. "But I never open it for men who hurt women." Catherine stirred weakly. William touched her shoulder gently. "Stay with us. You're safe here." Nancy looked at William. "If you're planning to protect her, you need to decide right now. Are you running or are you fighting?" William walked to the front window and looked out. 4 gunfighters sat on horses, weapons drawn. The leader was a scarred man with a cold stare. He called out, "Nancy Ramos, we know you have what belongs to Mr. Webb. Send out the woman and the Mountain Man. No one needs to get hurt." Nancy stepped beside William. "That's Charles Alvarez. Webb hired him and his crew 6 months ago. They're killers." William stepped outside with his hands away from his gun. "Catherine Cox is not property. She needs medical help." "She's staying here." Alvarez smirked. "Webb says she's spreading lies." She was told to stop. Now he wants her quiet. For good. "You can ride away and tell Webb she's under protection," William answered. The gunfighters shifted uneasily. Alvarez narrowed his eyes. "You know who we are?" I know you hurt people weaker than you, and I know you're on Nancy's land with guns drawn." Alvarez laughed. "Big words from one man facing four." "One man who's done running," William replied. His hand moved closer to his gun. "Ride away or face me." Nancy stepped out beside William with her shotgun. "You want the girl? You'll step over my body first." The standoff grew tense. Sweat rolled down one gunfighter's face. "Charles," he whispered nervously, "maybe we shouldn't." "Quiet, Roy," Alvarez snapped. Roy's fear took over. He reached for his gun. William drew first. One shot. Roy fell from his saddle, dead before he hit the ground. Gunfire exploded. Nancy fired and hit a second gunfighter in the shoulder. William dove behind a water trough and returned fire. Bullets tore into wood and dirt. Nancy reloaded fast and fired again. The wounded gunfighter screamed and stumbled away. Two remained. Alvarez tried circling to get a clear shot. The last gunfighter provided cover fire. Then, hooves thundered through the clearing. William feared more of Webb's men had arrived, but when the riders came into view, they weren't gunfighters. They were miners, 3 of them. Leading them was a strong, gray-haired man with a rifle. "Charles Alvarez," the miner shouted. "Name's Peter Gutierrez from the Copper Creek mine. We heard what happened to that journalist. We're here for the woman." Alvarez stared, shocked. "Peter?" "Mr. Webb won't like miners sticking their noses where they don't belong." "Mr. Webb doesn't speak for us," Peter said, raising his rifle. "We know the truth. She was asking about the cave-in that killed my brother and 5 other good men. She deserves justice." Alvarez saw the tide turning. The miners were angry, armed, and no longer afraid. "This isn't over," Alvarez growled. "Webb won't forgive this." William stepped forward. "Then tell Webb something for me. Catherine Cox is under protection now, and her story will be told." Alvarez glared, then fled with his remaining man. Peter dismounted and shook William's hand. "We're done being silent. If Catherine can prove what Webb did, we stand with her." Inside, Nancy finished treating Catherine. "She'll live," Nancy said. "But the next days will be hard." William looked at Catherine, her face pale, but now safe. For the first time since finding her, hope began to form. But danger still waited outside. "Wait, before we move on, what do you think about the story so far? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm really curious to know." The night settled over Pine Ridge, but no one in the boarding house slept. Catherine lay in a quiet room on the ground floor, breathing weakly. Nancy and Sharon cared for her through the night, while William, Peter, and Charles planned their next move. The documents they needed to expose Webb were still hidden somewhere, and Catherine's life remained in danger. By sunrise, Catherine woke with clearer eyes. William sat beside her bed. "You're safe here," he said softly. "Safe for now," Catherine whispered. "But Webb won't stop. You need proof." "Antonio," he hid documents. Reports showing Webb ignored danger in the mine. Peter leaned forward, shaken. "Antonio was my brother. If he hid proof, we'll find it." Nancy stepped in. "Catherine needs rest. You 3 can handle the searching." William had one goal now: get the evidence before Webb moved again. That evening, when the sky turned dark and quiet covered the land, William and Peter set off toward the Copper Creek mine. Charles stayed behind to guard Catherine and the town. Getting into the mine was risky. Webb's men patrolled more heavily now. But Peter knew a side path through pines and brush. They avoided the main road and reached the mine unseen. Lanterns glowed near the mine entrance as guards paced back and forth. "We wait for a gap," William said. Minutes passed. When the guards moved to another area, William and Peter slipped into an old shaft entrance. The deeper they walked, the colder the air became. Their lanterns lit the tunnels with weak golden light. Wooden supports creaked above them. Walls were damp, marked with old pickaxe scars. Peter led the way. Antonio called this the forgotten side, dangerous but private. They moved carefully, following a faint green line of copper running through the rock. Soon the tunnel widened into a chamber filled with natural stone formations that twisted like frozen waves. Antonio said he hid it where? The earth remembers, William reminded. Peter scanned the walls. Water had carved spiral markings across the rock like writing from nature itself. There, Peter said, pointing to a small cave opening in the rock. They reached inside, and William's hand brushed something dry and wrapped. He pulled out a bundle wrapped in oilcloth. Inside were neat papers, dates, notes, and warnings. Antonio's handwriting. Proof. Peter's breath shook. This shows everything. Webb knew the supports were weak. Antonio begged him to fix it. Webb refused. We need to get this to Catherine, William said, rewrapping the papers. As they turned to leave, voices echoed through the tunnels. Webb's men were inside the mine. William blew out the lantern. Darkness swallowed them. We can't go back the way we came, Peter whispered. He pointed to a narrow offshoot tunnel. They moved in darkness, hands feeling along the walls. They reached a ladder leading upward. At the top was a small exit behind a storage shed. They escaped back into the night. By dawn, they reached Pine Ridge. William carried the evidence straight to Catherine. She sat up, pale but awake. When she saw the papers, tears filled her eyes. You did it, she whispered. Antonio didn't die for nothing. Nancy placed a hand on Catherine's shoulder. Rest now. You'll need strength for what's coming. Quote, there was no time to celebrate. Less than an hour later, Charles burst into the boarding house. Webb's coming! He's riding here now with 12 men. They're armed for war. William looked at Peter. The miners? They're ready, Peter said. We have around 30 men, rifles and shotguns. Pine Ridge won't bow to Webb. William stepped outside as men took up defensive positions. Women and children sheltered inside homes. Catherine insisted on being moved downstairs where she could see what happened. We stand our ground today, William said. Webb ends here. Dust rose on the road as Marcus Webb and his riders approached. Webb sat tall on a black horse, dressed in a fine coat, holding a pistol with confidence. His gunfighters surrounded him. He stopped at the edge of town. Thompson! Webb called. Hand over the girl and the papers, and I'll pretend this never happened. William stepped forward. Catherine is under our protection. She will speak. And the truth will come out. Webb smiled coldly. You think a few miners and a mountain man can fight me? I own this territory. You owned it through fear, William replied. Fear's gone now. Peter raised his rifle. 17 men died because of you. Antonio, my brother, warned you. You killed him. Webb's smirk faded. Last chance. No one moved. Then a single gunshot echoed. Webb's hat flew off as a warning shot landed near him. Nancy stood on her porch with her shotgun. You aren't welcome here, Marcus Webb, she said. Turn around before Pine Ridge buries you where you stand. Webb's men looked uneasy. The townsfolk lined the street. Webb saw for the first time that he was outnumbered by people no longer afraid. William raised the papers. We have evidence. This goes to Denver. You're done. Webb's jaw tightened. He pulled his reins. This isn't over. But he turned his horse. His men followed. Pine Ridge watched in silence as Webb rode away, smaller now than he had ever looked. Inside, Catherine cried softly with relief. William sat beside her. You're safe now, he said. No, she whispered. We're safe. All of us. Quote. Weeks later, Catherine stood stronger, arm in a sling, preparing to travel to Denver to publish her story. William helped her onto the wagon. You sure you don't want to come with me? She asked gently. William smiled a little. I belong in the mountains, but if you ever need me, just send word. Catherine took his hand, her voice soft. I won't forget what you did. You saved me. William tipped his hat. No, Catherine, you saved yourself. I just opened the door. As the wagon rolled away, William watched her go. The mountains stood behind him, but something in his heart felt lighter. He had chosen action over silence, and this time, the person he helped lived. The story of Copper Creek would spread across the territory, and William Thompson's name would be remembered, not as a recluse, but as the mountain man who chose to fight for what was right.